Looks like we have 2 new winter storms forming. Let's see who will get snow and ice. You can also subscribe and ring the bell for the latest updates. That wouldn't surprise me at all. We don't expect a lot of snow there, but it certainly could happen. It will be all rain for the Carolinas and Virginia, except for the mountains where it might start as ice before turning to plain rain. Now, as I mentioned, the I-95 corridor may start with a quick icy mix before changing to rain, especially in Philadelphia, Baltimore, and D.C. The farther north you go, however, the trickier the forecast gets along that rain-snow line. I expect all snow for places like Scranton, Harrisburg, State College, the Finger Lakes, and the Catskills. The Adirondacks, too. New York City could start with a wintry mix and then change over to rain. As the storm continues, this helps keep you informed about the weather, and it's completely free. It looks like mostly rain for Long Island, maybe starting as a mix. The coasts of Connecticut and Rhode Island could also see a change from a mix back to rain. But let me tell you where this forecast is the most difficult. It's right here in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and the southern parts of Vermont and New Hampshire. That's where our forecast models show big disagreements on where that rain-snow line will finally be. You'll see what I mean in a moment. I also think that for Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, especially the down east parts of Maine, this could be a pretty big winter storm for you, particularly for the first couple of days of December. Let's switch over to a different forecast model now, one that goes out far enough in time for us to use. It doesn't cost a penny, and it's a great way to stay up to date on the changing weather. This model seems to agree with that general idea. I believe a heavy band of snow will form right along that line where the weather changes. That's the line where rain meets snow on the colder side. And if I had to pick who's in a good spot, it would be western and central Massachusetts and the very southern parts of Vermont and New Hampshire. You folks are looking pretty good as this continues. The down east areas of Maine can expect quite a bit of snow on Tuesday afternoon. Then, into Tuesday evening, Boston, Hartford, and Providence are very tricky to forecast. It's hard to tell exactly where the rain will turn to snow. I think you'll see rain at times, but it could start as snow and possibly end as snow too. Some of our forecast information, though, suggests it will be snow almost the entire time. All right, let's not waste any time today, and that includes some of our most reliable data. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at how much snow we might get. All right, let's get to the part everyone is waiting for. Let's talk about snow and ice totals. We'll start with the average of the different forecasts. I think it does a good job showing that band of snow developing on Monday afternoon. It could bring a solid 2 to 4 inches of snow from Chicago across southern Iowa and into northern Missouri. For areas south of there, near St. Louis, southern Illinois, and southern Indiana, it will probably be more like a 1 to 3 inch snowfall, but that's just the average forecast. Also on the western shores of Michigan, you're already getting that lake effect snow. Let's get right into it. Next to me is the latest forecast from our European computer model, and you can expect more snow on top of that. It's been a very snowy beginning of the year for you folks out there. Now, if we look at the European forecast model, that's what I'll use to compare. I will show you the average forecast, and then I will show you the European one just so we can see where they might differ. The European model generally predicts lower amounts of snow. However, it does show that same band of snow over northern Missouri, northern Illinois, and southern Iowa. But generally, I think the average of the forecast is a pretty safe bet for a nice, light to moderate snowstorm in this region. Now, if you go further south into the Ohio Valley, I think Louisville will get a good amount of snow. I'd expect 1 to 3 inches there. We sometimes call this one old reliable because it's often very accurate. The same goes for Cincinnati. The farther south you go into Kentucky, however, the amounts will change. So there's less cold air to work with. You'll likely see mostly rain, but it could end as snow when that colder air arrives. So watch for a quick dusting, maybe up to an inch across the rest of the state as this storm leaves. But the higher totals will be up in Ohio, where much of the state will get 1 to 3 or even 2 to 4 inches of snow. But farther south, in places like Tennessee, it's the same story, mostly rain. A quick dusting there at the very end wouldn't surprise me at all. Now, if we look at the European forecast model, let's see, where is it? There we go. I'll show you the ice forecast next. The European model is a bit more optimistic about snow at the tail end. That's one of the reasons I'm showing it to you. But please keep in mind, you can see it shows maybe 1 to 2 inches right through the middle of Kentucky. Some of that snow might even try to sneak down into the Nashville area. So that model shows a little more snow, but I still think our combined forecast is the safest bet. What about ice? How much ice can we expect from all this? Right now, I'm keeping a close eye on central Arkansas around the Little Rock area. We could get a quick glaze up to 1/10 of an inch when this begins tomorrow morning. Please be very careful if you have to go out. We could see some very icy spots, especially on bridges and overpasses. Please keep that in mind. It's not going to be a big ice storm, and we don't expect to see widespread power outages. But just remember that things could be very slick out there when you start your day tomorrow. Other forecast models are showing something a little different, which we'll talk about today. Now for the Northeast. This is where the forecast gets a bit more interesting, and we see some different possibilities. Here's our combined forecast from the different models. You'll start to notice a very clear dividing line, which is quite normal for winter storms this time of year. In Philadelphia, not much is showing up at all. For DC and Baltimore, not a whole lot is expected either. Some models do show a little snow, but the heavier amounts will be up towards Scranton and into the Hudson Valley, as well as western and central Massachusetts, the downeast areas of Maine, and into southern Vermont and New Hampshire. This whole circled area is where the storm will hit hardest. Boston is still expecting an average of 2 to 4 inches. And then, of course, the snow amounts change very quickly over short distances. But either along the Connecticut coastline, almost nothing. But as you go farther north toward Massachusetts, some spots could even get about 1/2 foot of snow. Here is what most of the weather models are showing for New York City. It's the same story there, not very much. If you go north of the city, you'll see more snow pile up. But that's the average of the forecasts. Let's look at some of the other models, including the one from Europe. It has been showing a different outcome for the past couple of days and is sticking with it. Here is the brand new afternoon forecast from the European model. And for some areas, it's a completely different picture. Take a look. It shows nearly 1 foot of snow in northern Rhode Island and about 1/2 foot up toward Boston. The European model shows a winter storm beginning now for some and growing through tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday. If you look back at the average forecast, that is a completely different story. So we are seeing some disagreements among the weather models. I don't want you to see the average prediction and think that's exactly what will happen. Now, the average is a good forecast to use because it blends everything and can reduce some errors. But there are other predictions, like the European model, that show a bigger storm for southern New England with almost 1/2 foot in much of Connecticut. And as I said, for Rhode Island, the northern half of the state could get a large amount of snow. It also brings a good 1/2 foot to Boston and shifts the heaviest snow further south. So it would not be as big of a storm for the down east areas, southern Vermont. Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday, November 30th. And then there's another. Or New Hampshire. They would still get a good 3 to 5 inches, mind you, but you would see less than 1/2 foot of snow up that way. It also shows that heavy band of snow reaching into northern New Jersey. If you are north of Interstate 80 in Jersey, the European model showing 1/2 foot. And just 50 miles north of Philadelphia, the suburbs could get a good 2 to 4 inches of snow. Still, not much is expected for New York City or Philadelphia, and maybe a little more down toward Baltimore. But in any case, I don't think this southern area should expect much from this storm. That goes for Philadelphia and areas south of New York City along Interstate 95. You could definitely see some wintry weather from this, but it's just not going to be a major event. Could the next one be big? We'll have to see. System right here that will move south and develop by next weekend, the first full weekend of December. I do see another storm on the way, but of course there's still a lot to figure out with that one. Let's look at another forecast. This is the Canadian model. Right now, I believe the Canadian forecast is the safest bet. It's predicting heavy snow for central and western Massachusetts, as well as for southern Vermont and New Hampshire. Some spots could even get a foot of snow. Now, that might be an overstatement, but I believe that's where the heaviest snow will fall, with much less expected for Boston. And if you're in Boston, I'm afraid that's likely how it will play out. Now, could you get a quick burst of snow at the beginning, perhaps a couple of inches? Yes, that is certainly a possibility. I just think warmer air will move into many of these cities during the middle of the storm. So this busy weather pattern is continuing, but it could start as snow and then end as snow again. It's that middle part of the storm that won't be as snowy. The GFS model seems to be a mix between the Canadian and European forecasts, so you get the general picture. Folks, there's a very sharp dividing line for the snow. You could see almost no snow in Rhode Island, but just up the road in central Massachusetts, they could get a foot. That's just how these winter storms often are. As I said, I think a combination of these forecasts is probably a safe bet. If I had to choose just one of the main forecast models, I'd say the Canadian one is likely the most accurate, but we should keep an eye on the European model. It has been very consistent with its prediction. And don't be surprised if those of us farther south and east get more snow than expected from this system, as I've been saying for a few weeks. Now for ice, we're not expecting a lot of it, but we could see a little bit at the start. I think areas farther south toward West Virginia and western Maryland could see more ice, perhaps a glaze to 1/10 of an inch or more. For the Northeast, I think a light glaze of ice would be the worst case scenario. All right, that covers the upcoming storm. I may have spent a bit too much time on it. Let's give you a quick preview of another storm. Another one that could be on the horizon and what it might bring. Well, it looks as though the pattern of storms will continue and cold air will also keep moving into the eastern United States. The cold will arrive in waves, and the real question is where the cold air and the storm will meet. I believe December will be a rather cold and snowy month for many areas. Which areas will see them overlap? Well, here we go. By Wednesday, which is really late Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning, that's when our big storm hits the Northeast. It's the one causing all the trouble I mentioned. After that, another weather system starts moving down into the Rocky Mountains. This will be the third storm, really. We already had that big one a couple of days ago. Now we have this next one on the way, and there's another one right behind it. I see it starting by next weekend once again in the Rockies, then heading south. Then that system will get pulled eastward with cold air waiting up north. Now here's the key part. Folks, this is what we really need to watch closely. Where exactly will the line between rain and snow be with this storm? Again, the end of November has started that trend, and it looks like December will continue it. I think that's going to be very tricky to predict. Let me show you a couple of our computer models. Here are the American and the European versions. I'll show you where they agree and disagree. You can see the storm system right there. See? You can see a lot of rain down south along the Gulf Coast. Cold air from the north is helping to push it all down. Now, if this was happening in January, this would be the perfect setup for snow and ice along the Interstate 85 area in the southeast. That means places like Atlanta, Greenville, and Spartanburg. And, of course, Charlotte. However, it's early December, It's early December, not quite February. I'm not planning on traveling through time either. But because of that, we have less cold air than we would see in the middle of winter. Now, we are still seeing the tail end of one winter storm right now. So the American computer model shows this, but let me say this right away. This is not a definite forecast. This is especially for all my friends in Charlotte who are going to. Watch this and then go tell everyone that a big snowstorm is on its way this weekend. That is not my forecast, and I doubt we'll see that. But with that said, the American model does show cold air moving in, creating a typical winter weather event for the southeast, north of Interstate 85. It shows snow in the mountains and the foothills, especially north of Interstate 40. They would likely be a mix of rain and snow along the Interstate 85 corridor. And it would be a winter weather event for the southeast and mid-Atlantic areas. It might not be a major storm, but it could bring some light precipitation up to the northeast, followed by another fast-moving storm. You may remember the heavy snow we saw over the Midwest and the Ohio Valley in about 7 to 8 days from now. That's what one of our computer models is showing. The trouble is, that model can sometimes get a little carried away. Now, let's look at the European model. And I can tell you it shows the ingredients are there, we've got the energy, and we've got the cold air. But will that cold air push far enough south for cities like Charlotte and Greensboro to see some winter weather? Right now, that doesn't look too likely. It's not impossible, just not the most likely outcome. The European model is showing a very cold rain. Now, I said freezing rain, but I should be careful because that's a specific type of weather. Let's call it a very cold rain instead. It's showing rain in Charlotte with temperatures around 35 to 40 degrees. Greenville and Spartanburg will see rain, but the mountains of North Carolina could get some snow. If you got snow, please let me know how much you received in the comments. I believe that. That makes a lot of sense for this time of year. The Ohio Valley looks to be getting another round of snow. So for folks in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, I hope you're not getting tired of the snow just yet. It's certainly been a snowy start to the winter for you all. We're also looking at winter weather for the Appalachian Mountains and another winter storm for the Northeast. But this next one will follow a completely different path and be a whole different situation. Honestly, all we know for sure right now is that we have the right ingredients: energy and cold air. So who will get the snow? Well, the best way to tell is to look at a variety of different forecasts, just like we usually do. So let's look at another forecast. This is the Canadian model. I would love to hear reports from places like Iowa. All right, as usual, this map shows the chance of getting snow that sticks within a 24-hour period. So what is it showing us? Well, we're going to focus on that last storm we've been talking about, which is set for this coming Thursday. And if you're in Boston, I'm afraid that's likely how it will play out. The chances for snow are looking good again down in the Four Corners region. Here comes that storm system. There's a pretty good chance for snow again in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. I said Missouri's as if there's more than one, but you know what I mean. The storm then moves into the Ohio Valley, and it's showing a pretty decent chance for snow down into, we'll call it the foothills of North Carolina, specifically north of Interstate 40, and then up into the western parts of Virginia and West Virginia. We're ending the month on a very cold, snowy, and icy note for a lot of us. Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, or anywhere else that saw snow. But for today, there's definitely a possibility there, and that chance for snow extends up into the northeast as well. Keep in mind, the main forecast wasn't showing much, but other models show a pretty good sign of snow for many of the same areas. This storm has a better chance of bringing snow to the I-95 corridor than our current one. That is, everywhere except maybe Boston, where it's still hard to say for sure. You can see the storm developing, so there's definitely something to watch. It's showing up on the European forecast models. It's just a matter of figuring out the exact details for each town, but we're getting a general idea. On the American models, you can see the Four Corners region gets some winter weather. And then, honestly, even though the main American forecast looked exciting at first, that snow is now moving into the inland northeast. It's turned into a bit of a letdown if you're a snow lover. Even for the I-85 area, where it showed snow in South Carolina, there's only about a 5% chance, or a 10% chance of that actually happening. You know, fruition might not be the right word. Maybe not. You can tell me in the comments. Let's just say coming to pass. Whatever you'd like to call it. For my friends that far south, it just doesn't look very likely. But in places like Greensboro, Asheville, and Boone, and heading north, I could see this being a tricky little winter storm. Especially when it comes to ice. If you look at the other models, you can see... Actually, this isn't the map I wanted to show you. Let me find the right one. There we are. This is it. This map shows the chance for freezing rain. You can see it's snowing quite a bit today in parts of northern Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. It shows the chances from Monday into Tuesday. Like I said, we could see some freezing rain, and then the chances seem to grow, so it's certainly something to watch. The chances have dropped a bit since yesterday, though. As I was saying, I'd say the Triad area up to Blacksburg, Virginia, Boone, and parts of West Virginia, and going north along the Appalachian Mountains.
I think you all have a much better chance of seeing winter weather from this. For Charlotte,
I'd put it at about a 10 to 20% chance of any freezing rain or ice next weekend. For Greenville and Spartanburg, we'll keep the chances about the same. It's probably not going to happen in Atlanta. And Columbia, I'm not seeing it with this one. But we'll keep watching it for you and keep you updated. But that's what I'm seeing for now, as well as upstate New York and even parts of Pennsylvania. Folks, that's the latest information I have for you. Just a couple of things before we end. This video was a bit longer than I expected. I will be live for you tonight. We'll start around 6 o'clock Eastern Time. We're going to discuss the winter storm coming in the next few days and give you a look ahead at next week's storm too. I'll be with BGWX again. If you watched our last live broadcast, you'll remember he's a real expert on Northeast weather. So if you're in that area and want to know about Boston or other spots with a tough forecast, be sure to tune in tonight. It's a great place to get all the details you need. We've got some leftover lake effect snow in Michigan and some. If you miss it live, you can always watch it later. It should be available by about 7 or 8 p.m. That's Eastern Time. All right, everyone, have a good one and stay safe. And if you want snow, let's hope for it. And I hope to see you all tonight.
plain old rain along the I-95 corridor and down in the southeast.
I'll tell you though, many people who are seeing rain right now will likely get a chance for snow with our next storm as colder air starts to move in. We'll be talking more about that in just a moment. Speaking of that next storm, here it is. And a new area is going to see some of that winter weather in the next few days. You can see it's already getting started over the Four Corners area with snow in the Rockies and Salt Lake City, and also down in Cedar City, Utah. And even in Montecille, you can see it's just beginning to form. So where does it go from here, and who gets the snow? Well, that's the big question. This map of the upper atmosphere shows us how it's all going to happen. You can see a weather system now pushing down into the Rockies. It has a clear rotation over the Four Corners, which is helping to lift the air and allow the storm to develop. Eventually, this will move eastward, making its way across the southern plains through the Ohio Valley, bringing a lot of that energy to the northeast. After that, I'm watching another storm about a week from now, which could bring snow and ice even further south. The storm will have a lot of power by this coming Tuesday. That means the storm is getting stronger, and snow amounts will be going up. Let's take a look at the timing for you. Our current storm is beginning to move out, as you can see on our latest weather map. And I do mean the very latest information. This update just came in, so you're seeing the newest information we have. But you'll start to notice our next storm is on the way. It's moving out of the Rockies into the Central Plains, showing a band of snow forming over Kansas and parts of Nebraska. We could even see some icy conditions down in Oklahoma as early as tomorrow morning for your Monday. So please be careful with that. I also expect we could see some light freezing rain. We could see some sleet and maybe a wintry mix as far south as Little Rock and other parts of Arkansas. But it looks like it will be mostly snow for Kansas and central and northern Missouri. There could be some ice in the Ozarks too. For folks in those areas, this storm should move through pretty quickly. I'd call it a light to moderate winter storm. It's nothing you haven't seen before, but it can still cause some travel troubles. So please be careful. By Monday afternoon and into the evening, the snow will start moving into parts of Iowa, and Chicago is getting more snow again. I hope you have your Christmas tree up. If you missed the last snow, this one will certainly get you in the holiday spirit. We have plenty to talk about in this video, so let's get started. We could even see some snow in southern Wisconsin. Then, late Monday night and into the early hours of Tuesday morning, around midnight, it will be snowing in Indianapolis and really across most of Indiana and Illinois. We're looking at a bit of a wintry mess there. Even down in the Arkansas Ozarks, a wintry mix is getting close to Memphis, but I expect it to stay just north of the city, at least at first. It might start as rain and then turn to snow as the colder air moves in. By the early morning hours of your Tuesday, you can see where that rain and snow line is. It's trying to move south as another wave of cold air arrives. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Gerald. catching up to this storm system that's forming near the Gulf Coast. Because of that, places like Louisville might see a mix of rain and snow at first, but I expect that to change over to a steady, wet snow. This is the kind of storm that gives you those big, beautiful snowflakes. Now that means this will be a heavy, wet snow. So we'll need to be prepared for some possible power outages. That heavy snow can weigh down the power lines, so please be mindful of that in Indiana, Ohio, and into Kentucky. As the storm gets stronger, it will start moving up the Appalachian Mountains by 5 a.m. on Tuesday. It's going to be a complete washout for Atlanta, Greenville, Spartanburg, and Charlotte. I'm a weather forecaster at WCCB in Charlotte. If you find this helpful, please go ahead and like the video. It will be a very cold rain to start your Tuesday, so be sure to bundle up. You'll want to start your car and let it warm up to defrost the windows. It won't be icy on the ground, but it will definitely be cold. You'll feel that chill the moment you step outside. We could see some ice, though, up in the mountains of North Carolina and in the mountains of the Virginias. It'll be all snow over in Ohio, with snow starting in Pittsburgh by Tuesday morning and continuing into the afternoon. For those of you watching in D.C. and Baltimore, it's going to be a very close call. It could start as an icy mix before it changes over to snow. That changeover to snow will happen on the back end of the storm through much of Kentucky and into Pikeville. Nashville might even get some snow as it leaves.